Hey everyone, welcome once again to the On the Right Side podcast. I'm your host, Steve Levy, former Suffolk County executive, former New York State Assemblyman. I'm the executive director of the Center for Cost-Effective Government. And usually my sidekick is David Zare from Real America Voice. David's on assignment at the White House today, but we're really lucky to have as a guest host today my good friend and an outstanding leader of the community here in Long Island, Chris Coluccio from TechWorks. Chris, great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it. Really always love having the chance to talk and speak with you. It's always fun.
Well, we're going to chat about a lot of things. And there's a lot of people out there who hopefully will find our dialogue interesting. We set up this podcast from the America First warehouse. It's on Long Island, New York, but we talk issues of national substance. And I was on the America First podcast for quite some time. Now there's this separate podcast, the On the Right Side podcast, where we're able to talk about just about anything we want. And there's so many things going on. We can go on forever. It's never a situation of not enough to talk about.
It's a crazy news cycle right now. There's just so much going on. I know it's almost hard to keep up with. Yeah. And it's almost hard to figure out what you should be paying attention to versus what's just distraction, right?
Well, let's start with the most pressing thing in the moment that everybody's talking about. It's on everyone's mind. It's what's going on with Iran, right? So it's very interesting because, you know, you have Israel leading the attack, saying we're just too close to a nuclear weapon here. We have to do something about it. And now the big question is, what is the U.S. going to do? And it's amazing because it's splitting the country, and it's splitting even MAGA world out there, where you have a big segment saying, hey, you know, we wanted Trump to be more of a out of foreign entanglements kind of guy. And then you have others who are saying, okay, but this is one of those situations where it's now or never to act. I'm going to give you my perspective, then I'm going to want to hear yours, Chris. Or you might disagree on this to a certain extent, and that's cool. That's good. I'm concerned about those who are saying we have to take our ball and go home and just let the Israelis handle it. It's their fight. My point is this is our fight too, because we're talking about Iran, a group of crazy fanatics who want to do us harm as much as the Israelis. Remember, they're the little Satan, but we're the big Satan. And my perspective is, Chris, once Iran gets a nuclear weapon, all bets are off. One can go into 5, which can go into 50 very quickly. And it's a very different situation dealing with, in a conventional sense, against an Iran without nuclear weapons and an Iran with nuclear weapons. And I think there's a great deal of naivete out there for people who think, oh, they just want Israel. I think they want us too. And the biggest fear I have, Chris, is Iran getting a nuke and not being able to send it over with an intercontinental ballistic missile. It's more them giving it to a rogue agent in a sleeper cell. And I think New York, Washington, and L.A. are just as much a target as is Tel Aviv. And if we don't act now, we will regret it. Your thoughts?
What's the end game with Iran and a nuclear weapon besides negotiations? Like, if they have a nuclear weapon and they detonate that nuclear weapon, they're gone in like 30 seconds. So, like, if they have a nuclear weapon and they get that nuclear weapon and they give it to somebody, what's really the, besides them using it as a negotiation tactic? And I'm not saying that, you know, at some point in time, all of these technologies are going to get into a lot of people's hands, whether it's them. I mean, it's 20 years down from the road, 30 years down the road. It's going to be so easy because technology goes so quickly, right? I understand what you're saying, but I would be surprised if they didn't have one already, right? And if they had that nuclear weapon and they detonated it in New York City or in Wisconsin or in Israel or wherever, what would be the purpose of that? They would be wiped off the map in about 30 seconds.
Great point. And here's my retort, okay? Here's the difference between Iran and China, Russia, these other states that have had nuclear weapons for a long time. With those agents out there, you were able to employ a policy mutually assured destruction, right? You're not going to start first. We're not going to start first because we know it's suicide if you do. I think it's different with Iran. I think these guys are so crazy. These are religious zealots who want to die as a martyr. This isn't a case of Chinese atheists, Russian atheists saying, we don't want to do a first strike because we'll be obliterated. They have a bomb. Hey, we just want to kill the infidels in Tel Aviv. We want to kill the infidels in the U.S. If it comes back and they blow us up, we're going for 69 martyrs up in with Allah.
I get what you're saying, but that's the end of Middle East if that happens, right? There's nothing left of them if that happens. So to me, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that they're as stupid as we think they are. I think they want global power, and I think they want to be a player in the world, and I do think that they're a little crazy like you do. But I don't see that as a quality endgame for anybody to say, let's go take a nuclear missile or a nuclear bomb, plant it in New York City, and assume that anything's going to be left of our culture in the next, I don't know, 3 hours, right?
See,
it doesn't make any sense to me from that, and I can't believe that they're that stupid to do something like that, because it's such a large event and it's such a precedent that it just allows us to open the beehive and take it all down.
I buy that.
And
when you're dealing with a Russia or even a Pakistan, which is now a nuclear nation. But here's another distinction as well that I'll make between this and like Iraq, which was a stupid war. I always thought it was a stupid war. Obama thought it was a stupid war. Trump thought it was a stupid war, okay? Or Afghanistan, which I don't think was a stupid war because that's where the terrorists were based. But in those cases, we were trying for regime change. We were, the neocons wanted to go in, and they said, Wolfowitz and Pearl and Cheney and Bush, we're going to go into the Middle East. We're going to, change the leadership. We're going to put in a Western democracy. We saw how that worked out, okay? But this is not that. There is no intention, whether it would be President Trump doing a single strike with the big cluster bombs to wipe out their nuclear arsenal. This would be a simple prick attack, just like the Israelis did with Saddam. You delay maybe a decade with the hope that now you're stirring up the opposition within Iran and you get rid of these crazies. And now you got a chance to bring them into the world order.
There's a lot of what ifs in that scenario.
Sure.
There's a lot of what ifs in that scenario
Yeah.
as opposed to what exists right now. And to me, this is just so familiar to what we did when we said we needed to bomb Iraq. We needed to go in there. There was a guy, I don't remember his name, his first name was Scott, I think, who went in there and said, I've been in Iraq and they have no nuclear weapons. And there's a lot of people right now, even in Iran, saying they don't have nuclear weapons. I know that this guy was out there saying, I've been through all their facilities. I know that they don't have nuclear weapons. And everybody said this guy was crazy. And they're doing the same thing right now. It's just, to me, it's just so...
You don't think they have them? You don't think they're getting close in Iran?
I don't know that. I don't
even
know that
the
answer.
International monitors who are crazy
but
libs
that's what
are
they said
saying they're this
That's
close.
what they said in Iraq when we went into Iraq. They said they're this close, or they already have them, and we never found anything whatsoever.
Well, that was
I'm not
lot.
arguing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm just trying to be a little devil's advocate over here.
That's cool.
Because
but by the way, it's a big
just
contingent you're representing.
It is so familiar to the things that they said to us, and there are people on the other side who say, "I've been in there. I know they're not ready to do this. They're not going to have it for another 10 years already." So, this is for me. It's like. I don't know. Like every time we drop a bomb, it's like, okay, if we drop bombs, all our problems are going to go away. And they never go away.
Yeah, that's what really propelled Trump to the nomination in the Republican Party. It's why he's got a big base of support from younger people. They don't want any more of these foreign wars. I'm just taking issue. I don't think if he were to go in with the cluster bombs to take out that embedded nuclear site, I don't think Trump's intent is hey, let's put American boots on the ground, as Bush did in Iraq, to say we want regime change.
But how do you know it doesn't come to that? And how do you, again, I look at it from I don't know if you saw the interview. They did a piece, Tucker Carlson's coming out with an interview with, oh my God, who was he with? Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz said, we're already supporting this war. We're already in it.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, he's like, but he didn't mean to say that. Tucker called him out on it.
I'm okay saying it.
He's like, this doesn't happen already.
See, Israel, in my mind...
everybody knows that, though. So if they're going to bring the war someplace, if we already have all these people in here, and they already know that we're the ones supporting that, then how does that not come to us?
But what's the alternative? Is to just say, hey, Israel, you're on your own. I really think they're fighting our fight. Just like, I might not be in the majority in MAGA world with believing that the Ukrainians are fighting our fight against the Russians, degrading them. Hey, give them the aid that they need to disintegrate the Russian army to the greatest extent possible.
They're never going to disintegrate the Russian army, and we're never going to.
But they did. I mean, not that they're winning the war,
there's
but
no way
the
to win
Russians
that.
have been. They've lost 1 million people.
Yeah, it's stupid for us to be
Right.
supporting that. It's stupid for the number of people that were lost on the other side. I think this is all dumb stuff.
Well, it'd be nice if we can get a peace. I agree with you, but it is Russia that's
It's just-
impeding that peace. I mean, Trump put out a nice a platform an off ramp for the Russians. They don't want it, so if they don't want it, I don't think we should say let's just take our ball and go home. Hey, he offered peace. The Ukrainians said, "Okay, we'll abide by that." The Russians are not. We should continue to help.
I don't know that
Ukrainians,
that's
no?
the general narrative that you get from other people on the other side that don't believe that Ukraine is not making it easy for Russia to accept a peace deal. And I'm not, again, I'm not an apologist for anybody. I'm just one who doesn't believe that any of these wars would do us really any good.
Well, that's the debate, right?
Right. I mean, for me, it's you could spend money forever in Ukraine trying to fight Russia. You'll spend money forever in Iran trying to fight them, and I don't think that we're any better off after any of these. We haven't been any better off. Libya, and I mean, Iran is just the last one left. So let's just get the last one. I mean, we did Libya, we screwed up
you're
that country. We
representing-
did Iraq, we screwed up that country. We did Afghanistan, we screwed up that country.
I'll just take in the 10 seconds
come on,
left
let's
in
just
this
do it another-
segment.
not that Iran is a
I'll
great-
just take the position. I think Iran is different than all the others because they're so radically charged.
That's the same thing they said about.
2 seconds.
Yeah.
Keep that thought. Come back at the next round, and we're gonna have more fun with this.
I told you this was crazy. I'm out of here.
No do that. Free stuff for all. I have to be such a downer.
For you, bow to the master staff. Come to me. Oh my God, this guy's from Jersey.
Hi, how you doing? Fuck up my stage.
I'm pretty sure I'm a woman.
No, you're not, Steve. Oh! Oh!
Wet on my side.
Now instead of a poke, you're getting a smack!
What have I done?
Hi, my name is Elena Ruseva, aka Megalangela. Please check my art at www.megalangela.vip.
It's me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse. No, it's the America First Motor Club here in Ronkonkoma, 9013th Avenue. Sunday morning, we're opening up 9 a.m. Beautiful artwork from Nelson Medina. We just passed him over there. We're coming in Sunday at 9 a.m. hot. We're going to raise some money for our veterans. The event is free. You make some donations, buy a hamburger. There will be food, plenty of it. We love this country. Congratulations, President Trump. Congratulations to our country. One nation, under God. Sunday morning.
Are you a musician, comedian, actor, filmmaker, or artist who stands for traditional American values? Do you believe in the preservation of our nation, our culture, and our freedoms? If you share our passion for America and want to use your talents to make a difference, we want to hear from you. Our mission is clear. Through the arts, we uphold the principles of freedom, faith, family, and the American spirit. It's time to step up to the mic and make your voices heard. So contact us at AmericanConservativeArtists.com.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
Welcome back to the On the Right Side podcast. I'm your host, former Suffolk County Executive and New York State Assemblyman Steve Levy. I'm also the Executive Director of the think tank Center for Cost-Effective Government. Our regular sidekick, David Zaire from Real America's Voice, is on assignment in Washington, D.C., but I'm really, really lucky to have Chris Coluccio, the CEO of TechWorks, as our partner in crime here today. And if you missed the first segment, you missed a really great dialogue between me and Chris on what's going on with Iran. And we we disagree a little bit, which is great, but it really shows the two sides. We're both Republicans in the Republican side, and even at the population at large, there's no unified position as to, we should go, we're all in with Israel, we should just do a pinprick with the cluster bomb, or we should just stay out of it totally. People are really split, and the president's going to have to make some really big decisions.
I think
really
a lot of us voted for this kind of non-intervention. Let's put America first and get rid of, stop spending all of our money in foreign wars. And, unfortunately, even though Israel's doing it, I think we're already in it. So I just, for me, it's always the least amount of bombs you can drop is probably the best.
Well, I'll give you my thought on that, and then we'll segue into another topic. But there was Harold Macmillan, the former Prime Minister of England, was once asked by a reporter at the beginning of his term, so what do you think is going to be the generating force in your term? And he said, events, dear boy, events. Meaning you could have all the plans in the world as to what you're going to do as an elected official, and then events happen that you have to react to. It's like the Mike Tyson line, hey, you got plans, until you get punched in the face. Right. And then, so here's a situation where events are happening and you have to react. And I'm going to use the late 30s as an example, where there were a lot of people who were isolationists, and you had peaceniks, people who were humanitarians and they wanted to save lives. And one of them was Neville Chamberlain, who came back waving a piece of paper saying, hey, I've got the premier of Germany signed on a dotted line of peace in our times. How did that work out? 50 million dead people later, we realized that appeasement didn't work and should have acted when you had the chance. And here's my opinion, that you've got a chance, a little window, to prevent them from getting the nukes. If you don't, will we regret it later? I say do it and take it out.
You should, if that's the case, we should just throw all the bombs out to everybody right now. I mean, every time there's a problem, we're like, we should just bomb our way out of that problem, and it seems to never fix anything.
Well, it didn't work in Iraq. That's
it didn't work in Libya. It didn't work in Iraq.
But it did work. Churchill said at some point, hey, you got to stand up and do what you got to do to save lives in the long term. But listen, we can go back and forth on this for 4 more segments, and there's a lot of other things to talk about. And one of them is the new thing that's going on, folks. It's Democrats wanting to be arrested by ICE so they can have their viral moment. We saw Governor Gavin Newsom, come on, tough guys, arrest me. We had those Congress people in New Jersey bullying and pushing ICE agents. We had Senator Padilla, nobody knows who the hell this guy was, the junior senator from California, interrupting a press conference, charging the podium, getting tackled, had his big claim to fame, is now crying on the floor of the Senate saying, they attacked me and violated my rights. But that wasn't it, Chris. Then yesterday, we had Controller Lander in New York City, who just so happens to be running for mayor of New York, put his arm interlocked with an illegal alien getting detained by ICE, and got himself arrested, and now everybody throughout the nation knows who Brad Lander is, right? This is the new trend. Is it bogus, or are they for real?
Oh my God! So all of this stuff. I mean, I look at it's all like like they call it astroturf, right? It's like all this kind of symbolism over any substance. For me, I think. I mean, listen, it happens on both sides, but there's certainly. First off, I think we've lost any decorum in our elected officials, right? They have on both sides, but like I see a lot on the Democratic side where there's just they're willing to do anything to get in front of a camera or to get the point across that they want to get across.
Maxine Waters, get in their face,
no,
right?
and it is it is definitely from a news media standpoint very one-sided what you see them get away with on one side versus what they allow it to happen on the other side. It's sad to see because they're breaking laws that are part of our country. It doesn't make any sense to me except for a photo op to do these things. And there's probably ways for them to get those points across in much more peaceful and again.
They want the clicks, baby. They want the clicks.
The same kind of stuff. Like these are not they're not ways. They're not peaceful methods to do these kind of protests. But then when the other side comes around and does something similar, they're like, you guys are the angry party. You guys are the people who hate everybody. You guys
Well, the liberal media, mainstream media narrative on this is just disgusting. ICE, the law enforcement folks, are the bad guys. Right. And the illegal aliens, especially the criminal illegal aliens, they're the victims. And the saviors are these liberal Democrats who are coming to the rescue to fight evil ICE. I mean, the way they presented the narrative on Padilla, this guy is a nobody. I'm a really informed guy, and I barely knew what this guy looked like. He's only been in office for a few years. He's never been on national TV. He interrupts a press conference, and by the way, he was in Washington the day, it was supposed to be for the softball game, but left on purpose to go there to set up this big manufactured event, and then starts charging, not like running, but aggressively walking up to the podium on a woman, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. These Secret Service guys, they don't know who the hell he is. You got some guy yelling at the secretary, ready to possibly knife her, like a guy tried to knife Lee Zeldin on a podium. What'd they do? They took action. They took him down. This is an era where the President of the United States had 2 attempted assassinations on him. What were these guys supposed to do? Let him attack her first unknowingly, what he was going to do, and then after the fact say, who are you? Crazy.
Yeah, but, I guess I look at it and I say, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. I mean, you can't be running up the stage. And you can't be – but the ability for the Republican Party to get a good narrative out on any of this stuff is like – because this guy, he still looks like a hero to their camp, or if you
watch CNN or MSNBC.
But a lot of people that I know that are just getting cursory news and aren't really spending some time with it, that's what they see. They see everybody who talked about, and I forget his name, the immigrant who was
Garcia.
from
Brago Garcia.
The narrative was that this was a great guy.
Maryland
got
dad.
deported, and my friends who are Republicans or don't really have opinions about this stuff. How could we report this great guy? And that's what they're telling us. But on our side, or if it's more on the conservative side, you're looking at it saying, how come we can't get them to understand that most of the people that are being deported are really bad people, really bad dudes, but they can't get that narrative out. And
you really can't. But I go one step further, and I say that Republicans and conservatives have to stop apologizing if illegal aliens who haven't committed crimes are deported anyway. They should be deported. I mean, the minute you start saying that, hey, if you came over and you just didn't get in trouble again, that we can't deport you, guess what? You are now promoting open borders because you're now sending the message to the rest of the world, you can come over, keep your nose clean, and you can stay forever. Messages matter.
I agree with that, but I think the way to do this, to build a populace around that stuff and to get everybody to understand what's going on, is to spend the vast bulk of your time getting rid of those people that are criminals.
Agreed.
And showing the population that that's what you're doing, because as soon as you go after someone who's been here for 10 years and has a family,
it's a harder sell.
It's not only that, you now look like the big bad wolf coming in, a big bad guy doing all this stuff. And it's that narrative, again, that they're willing to take.
Yeah.
You can do 150 to 1. And that one is going to be the
That's
one that
true.
they're going to run
It's a
with.
fine line balancing act. I think you're absolutely right. And Trump was right on this. We're prioritizing the criminal. But I think it's a mistake if you say, okay, we're prioritizing the criminal, but only those who committed crimes once they were here can be deported. That's a very, very bad message. I agree that we should concentrate on those who have been committing crimes, but if along the way you haul somebody up who's not here legally, and they might have their noses clean, you can't say, we're letting you slide.
Yeah.
Because you start down that route, it just keeps unraveling, and you send the message,
I think
hey, you've been here for a few years, okay, you can stay. Here comes the next wave.
The problem you're going to have is you can't get them all out, right?
You can't.
You can't
You're
get them all
right.
out. So doing that and thinking that that's the way to really build the future for me is there's going to be a percentage of illegal population that is going to live in this country in
That
the
is
future.
true.
And my methodology is to say make them the best Americans that we can.
See, I'll
and try to
disagree
do
with
that
you
because you're not going to get them out.
I
And
hear
you're
you,
not
but
so
I think if
don't
you
invite any more in.
Yeah,
right?
but they keep if they know they
That's
can
only
come
because we wanted
and
them
just
to
keep
come.
their nose clean and then give them that path to citizenship or legalization, they'll keep coming.
No, make them
Listen,
good
I
Americans.
agree with you. We are not going to get them all out. But the price you pay for coming here legally is to always be looking over your shoulder and always have that fear. Because if you or I went to any other country on this
I agree
planet
with you.
and we didn't play by the rules and go in the right way, we would always be looking
problem
over our
is-
shoulder.
and I'll-
Always.
this
And that's
is-
the way it should be.
You can't. We create this problem,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then we call. And I listen. They're human beings as far as I'm concerned
Me
too.
too.
And,
I
and,
totally
and
agree.
if I was them, I'd do the same thing. I'd
Absolutely,
come
because
across
we
the border.
incentivize them to come.
So we brought them into this country in a way. Now that we didn't force them to come here, but we said, come here, get jobs, get welfare, get all of these things, and then we're like, no. So I feel like there's probably a better way to do this, but I also think that the vast majority of times should be anybody. You. I don't care if you cross the street wrong. Let's get then that's that's it. But
Well, see, the back and forth we're having here, it's happening all over the country, in people's homes, in people's workplace. We got a lot more to talk about. We hope you're finding it interesting. Get us after this commercial. We're going to have more interesting talk on the right side.
The Queens Village Republican Club is America's oldest Republican club, founded in 1875. Situated in President Trump's hometown in Queens, New York, we are America First MAGA Republicans, empowering fellow Republicans to get involved in the game of politics at the grassroots level. We host inspiring monthly club meetings on the first Thursday of each month at 8 p.m. For more information, please go to our website at www.qvgop.org.
Corporate transfer, fine professional, moving and storage, and inventory management.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler. Donald Trump's language mirrors this directly.
Well, Hitler was duly elected.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that is Mussolini Hitler-like language.
You say Nazi enough times, someone's gonna actually have the guts to do it.
Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
What percentage of this event happening was due to Donald Trump's rhetoric?
Don't miss Trump next time.
What do you make of the excess deaths?
None of us, not the president, not those hypothetical guys in the smoky rooms fully know what's going on, but we can speak about the unfolding of recent history with certainty.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy.
That is not how it works. That is a threat to democracy.
No. No.
You anti-Semitic piece of
When you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit.
Free fries when you get vaccinated? Vaccination.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the On the Right Side podcast. We're coming to you from the America First Warehouse on Long Island, New York, and thank you to Joe the Box for being our host. My co-host is usually David Zaire from Real America's Voice. He's on assignment in Washington, D.C., but we're so happy. If you've been watching the first two segments, you'll see what great discussion I've had with my co-host for today, Chris Coluccio, the CEO of TechWorks. And we've been disagreeing a lot, which is great. You know, we're able to respectfully disagree at times, and we're both Republicans. We both consider ourselves fairly conservative, you know, right of center as you are, not extremists, and yet we can have, we agree on core things, but there's a lot of nuances where we might disagree. Let's see where we stand, speaking of illegal immigration and the showboating that was being done by Democrats at these press conferences, wanting to get arrested for their big viral hits. What has been happening in our cities where we now have these mass protests by the illegal immigration lobby, which I call it, fueled on by many nefarious sources out there, and, you know, fighting ICE. I mean, physically fighting ICE agents, throwing rocks at them, getting in their face. And it's scary stuff. So here comes President Trump, says, no, not again. In 2020, he took advice from General Milley and that horrible deep stater, Esper, who was the head of defense, said, don't put in the National Guard. It'll have a bad look, blah, blah, blah. This time around, the president's saying, no freaking way. You know, these things are getting out of control. You got to nip it in the bud early. I'm totally supportive of the president putting in the Guard. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so, I mean, from my standpoint, this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't, so you might as well do it, right? This is one of those things that if he didn't put in the National Guard, everybody would be like, how are you letting these cities burn? It's all your fault. So I agree that the National Guard, you know, he has the right to use that stuff to protect what you would consider federal assets. You know, I mean, if you know me, I'm a pretty strict constitutional conservative, and I believe much more in the states' rights. So I don't want the federal government doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. But in this case, if you're protecting federal buildings or federal
offices,
federal officers, then I agree. I also tend to agree or disagree that we you know, sometimes ICE and the federal and the national, not so much the National Guard, they look bad and I know they're being doxxed and stuff, but when you're going out there with all these masks on and, you know, you're not showing your face, people see that as this kind of new stormtrooper kind of, you know, like from you know, that they're going out there and are able to do with impunity some of these things that I think is okay.
Well, there's civil liberties involved, no doubt, but
Yeah.
I think it's really ironic that these same Democrats who are now aghast over the fact that a doxxed ICE agent might want to wear a mask to protect his family, as the Mexican military or those in El Salvador have to do, because the gangs will kill them. I think it's hilarious that they're opposed to all of these measures coming back, which tell protesters that they can't wear a mask. Forever, in many states, and New York in particular, there was an anti-Klan masking law on the books. We didn't want people out on the streets with masks because you can't identify them when they're doing these lousy things. Then COVID came, they suspended them, and now they're trying to get them back into effect. And we're getting pushback from the left. Oh, no, you can't tell people that they can't wear masks. Well, then how do you identify these horrible people throwing Molotov cocktails at Jews or ICE agents, et cetera? You know, it was always constitutional
I think
before.
You got to figure out where it's coming from. I mean, I think that this is a tough one, right? For me to, you know, being kind of a little bit of a libertarian on this kind of stuff, is I want as much freedom as I can have to wear a mask if I want to, even though I don't agree with it, you know, to wear a mask if I want. I understand, you know, being a tech guy, just how pervasive AI technology is and the ability for them to track you everywhere. So, you know, that's a problem too, from a different standpoint. So I struggle a lot with that one as to what the right answer to that is, and I always try to lean towards the, you know, let's you know, let people do what they want to do. And the big problem is not that they're wearing masks. The big problem is that they're throwing Molotov
Yeah,
cocktails, or they have bricks on the streets, or they have other stuff, and it's the bad behavior that's the problem, not the masks.
Yeah, well,
right?
there's another hypocrisy on the left, and it pertains to their opposition now of federalizing the National Guard. Like, oh, you can't do that. The governor and the mayor didn't request it, so the feds can't come in. And I'm saying, did you guys on the left miss the history class when you were in high school?
Right.
When President Eisenhower mobilized the National Guard, President Kennedy mobilized the National Guard exactly because the governors of Arkansas and Alabama, who were both Democrats, by the way, said, we don't want black children going to a white school. And the feds came in anyway, say, what you're doing is blatantly unconstitutional, and we're going to defend the United States Constitution. None of the lefties back then were saying, oh, the feds can't come in,
Yeah,
and thank God they did. And the feds can come in now to protect federal agents enforcing federal law.
But this is typical of, I mean, politics in general, but certainly on the left side of politics is whatever is good for the moment is the thing that they agree with, right? And and they'll fight both sides of every argument when it's good for them, or when it's good for when it's not good for them. They'll fight either way,
Right.
And that's just a problem with our politics in general. It's certainly I see it as a bigger problem somewhat on the left, but there's these missing first principles of saying, okay, what's right and wrong, and what does our Constitution say, and what are the actual laws that are set in stone that we say that and I believe the law is they're allowed to do this when it's protecting these kind of things. So that's what the law is. Now, if we have to change the law, we change the law.
Right.
So I think that what you see is it's one of those things. It doesn't matter what they do. It's when it works for them. That's the argument they're going to put forth, right?
And thank God we have outlets like this on the Right Side podcast, or you can go to other media like Newsmax and Real America Voice and Fox, or some of the radio outlets, so that people can get an alternative view to the mainstream media. Because if you just read the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN, you are not going to know that the majority of these protests are not organically rising up. They are funded by the George Soros illegal immigration crowd, a lot of Marxist organizations. They have this intersectionality. Why would communists be protesting alongside of the Muslim, the Palestinian rights people? They have nothing in common other than they both hate America and they want to destroy the foundations of our institutions. So who's funding this? Some of them have been linked back to the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Hopefully the American public will see this.
Well, I think the money trail has got to be, the fact that we have paid professional protesters in this country, is just something that I find it's kind of sad to be honest with you, that if you're doing this just to get a paycheck, or if you're doing this even if you support this thing, and that to me bothers me a lot, that there's so many groups that and a lot of, from what I've seen, groups that are getting our tax dollars to then get paid.
It's coming through the NGOs now.
To then get paid. And that whole NGO thing is just, it's kind of sick the way they use these NGOs as these, what they would call, I mean, I run a nonprofit. I know a lot of, and I work with tons of great nonprofits. To have something that you call a nonprofit organization that's just this ridiculous political group, I don't think they should even exist.
The
It's
money
crazy.
with taxpayer dollars went into the Build Back Better bill that Biden put together. Which then was sprinkled to all these groups, the Justice for Palestine, the Justice for this one. And then what are they doing? They're giving money to these groups with their own mask coverings or whatever.
The NGOs
it might
are
be.
just being used, to me, the NGOs are just being used to get away with things that the government can't get away with on their own.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly sad. So we fund an NGO. I don't care what side it is. I don't care what it is. You fund these NGOs, and then they go out and do something in the name of our government with our tax dollars that we know the government officials couldn't get away with, but they're so happy it's being done. That to me is just, that's criminal. It's criminal.
And What's also criminal is to see all these young people joining in this protest because their idea of history has been so subverted by so many of these leftists who now control not only higher education, but K through 12. The things they're teaching to K through 12 now, absolutely
You know what's amazing?
unbelievable.
I find this. So they did a poll recently across the entire country about our education system and whether or not you support having the ability of school choice.
Right.
And across every demographic, it's almost 70%.
Especially in a minority community.
But Democrat, Republican, black, white, whatever you are, it's over almost 70% across the board. And yet we're still not allowed to have. What other topic in this entire country has a 70% agree rate across the entire demographic of the country?
And it shows how powerful the teachers
And,
unions
well,
are, right?
Teachers unions, our governments, whoever's in control of this stuff, it's probably more than, but how come, if we're really a democracy, if we're really, this is the one thing we all agree upon.
Right.
And nothing. You can't
Right.
get it. It's
but
just shot down.
rich people can have the choice of sending their kid to the school of their choice. But if you're middle class or poor, nope, you got to go to the violent, sucky school in your neighborhood. And my Center for Cost-Effective Government did a white paper on this, and we think it's ripe for a lawsuit to say that that's unconstitutional.
I mean, listen,
that you have to be relegated to a poor, violent school in your area.
Yeah, where we live, I think we're very lucky. My kids get a great education. There's great schools where Long Island is we have very high paid teachers. But I know that that's not across the board in this country. And if you need to have school choice,
and even in Long Island, there's pockets of really bad schools. You should be able to go, maybe not to the public school next to you, but to a charter school within your area. Absolutely.
I don't understand. But that's to me this is what we're looking at. How does that even happen? How do you have something that we all agree upon? And
Well, if you guys like what you're hearing here with this back and forth, stay tuned because we got a lot more fun stuff to talk about in our last segment. I want to bring up Greta Thunberg on our next segment. So get back with us in the next segment, folks. Thanks.
Corrupt judges, broken families, families torn apart. This isn't justice. If you've been wronged by the system, join us. Don't stand alone. Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, president of Americans for Legal Reform. We're the oldest legal reform group in the United States. The justice system in the United States should be transparent, fair, and open to everybody and accessible. Unfortunately, many times that's not the case. At Americans for Legal Reform, we are here to help. Join the movement. Visit AmericansForLegalReform.com and help reform the system before it fails you.
The America First Ultra MAGA Store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA Store.
Welcome, everybody, to the Not-So-Newlywed Show, where three couples are going to compete for really great prizes. Okay, Donna, we asked Mike, who complained first on your honeymoon, you or him?
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think he said...
Lisa, this ain't the SATs. Just tell us what... Donna, who complained first on the honeymoon?
I'm sure it was me, but I have no idea.
Donna is right.
No, it's always me.
What celebrity would you pick for a one-day pass?
For me?
Yeah, for you, not for him.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon! Wow! Who do you hate the most on her side? That rotten no...
There are so many choices.
Thank you all, and thank you for coming out.
Hi, my name is Elena Ruseva, aka Megalangela. Please check my art at www.megalangela.vip.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the On the Right Side podcast. I'm your host, Steve Levy, former Suffolk County Executive, New York State Assemblyman, the Executive Director of the think tank Center for Cost-Effective Government. David Zayer's out on assignment today, but we're so lucky because we have Chris Coluccio, the CEO of TechWorks here on Long Island. Thank you to Joe the Box, who is our host here at the First America Warehouse. If you guys ever come to Long Island, because this goes out all over the place, you've got to come to the First America Warehouse. It is a museum for people who love America. They have so many events here. It will blow your mind to see just the aesthetics of this place. And great podcasts that emanate from here, too. Gives you a different perspective than the lamestream media out there. And Chris, as we were talking and ended the last segment, we're talking about a poll vis-a-vis the young people in America today. There's two other polls that really scare the hell out of me. One of them is the poll that say that most young people are not proud of their country. And the second one is, if we were invaded, as Ukraine was invaded, would you stand and fight for your country? And most said no, mostly Democrats, by the way. But isn't that a sad reflection of the polluting of the minds of our young people? And I'll segue into a very polluted mind, this Greta Thunberg, who first came to fame on the climate change issue, who said, "How dare you," to the UN because they weren't doing enough on climate change. But now she's got a new gig, because she was out of the attention for a while and she needs more attention. So she charters a boat and tries to go down to save the day in Hamas and Gaza, is what I'm trying to say, to distribute the food. So the Israelis naturally said, "We're not going to let you play this game. Goodbye." And she turns around and issued a video before they turned around and said, "If you're seeing this video, it means I was kidnapped by the Israeli forces." And I would just like maybe to talk about maybe showing Greta Thunberg what real kidnapping is all about.
Yeah,
Not that I want to kidnap, but
I can't stand, and again, I look at this all over politics in general, but I can't stand these rhetorics that compare people to Nazis, that really belittle people that have actual tragedies and have actually been kidnapped, and they just bring everything up to a level that is so, I'm sorry, but I look at someone like Greta and say, she's so privileged, and she's really just being used as a useful idiot.
Useful idiot, great term.
Right?
And
listen, useful idiots are used on all sides.
That was the Russians, who coined the term, the KGB. Yeah. They had useful idiots in America in the 50s, 60s, and 70s doing their bidding with the enemy from within.
Yeah. And listen, at some points in time, I felt like I was a useful idiot for some of the politics that I've agreed with that I no longer agree with. But to sit here and I just feel like she just plays this sanctimonious, that she's just so much better than at 14.
How dare you?
At 14, she was telling me about the whole world and how I should view the world, and it's just crazy. So I don't understand that. I hate any of this rhetoric that can't have a reasonable dialogue about what's going on and has to bring everything to the nth degree and make us all they're just tugging at all these heartstrings of everybody, and it's such
Speaking of being able to have a dialogue, right? The new term is everything's a threat to democracy and authoritarianism. Trump is this authoritarian threat to democracy. Now listen, I'm the first. I call them as I see them. I'm not my team, their team. I look for truth like you do. And listen, Donald Trump can be nasty. He can say some foolish things sometimes. He can be over the top a lot. But authoritarian, I'm looking at all my liberal friends who were at the No Kings Day the other day and saying, so I'm asking them, tell me one instance in how your liberties have been infringed upon as, a middle-class person in America, or whoever you are in America. I'll tell you what, though. I'll tell you many of my conservative friends who've had their liberties trampled in the last 4 years by Facebook, by Twitter, by a lot of other social media platforms that denied them the right to speak. They were canceled. They were thrown off the platforms at the behest of the Biden administration, who pressured these outlets to quash conservative speech. And there was a lawsuit on this, and a federal judge said what the Biden administration did was the biggest violation of the First Amendment in the history of this nation. That, to me, is where the authoritarianism lies, not with the Trump rhetoric.
Well, I mean, generally the way I look at authoritarianism is anybody who's trying to say you can't say something, or is trying to take away your speech or your ability to have a platform, or you saw what happened to Parler and these other things. Like, that's, to me, is the authoritarian. You can pick out authoritarians pretty quickly because they don't want you to say what they don't want you to say, right? And anytime you don't agree with them, and there's authoritarians all over. But generally, I have found that, you know, and I see this even in my life, that if I'm trying to speak about certain topics and I'm in a more liberal area, those topics become, you know, you can't talk about them. You're not allowed to.
Liberals are tolerant,
you know,
as long as you agree with them.
Right.
They're the party of tolerance. As long as you agree.
I'm going to also say I'm not a big person who likes to say the liberals or I don't like to put people in these boxes, because I have plenty of friends that are liberal that I can talk to all day long, and are open to this, and you know, and I share some of their, you know, sometimes we find some consensus. So I'm very big on trying not to use these kind of big general terms around people, but it definitely does seem to be that on the left, those topics that they don't want you to talk about become verboten.
And there have been polls on that. I mean,
yeah. Oh no,
there have been polls like, would you still meet for dinner with someone? Would you still date someone if they disagreed with you philosophically? Right. And overwhelmingly, conservatives say yeah, and overwhelmingly, Democrats and liberals say no. And so that's shocking.
It is shocking. It comes. I think that there's a lot of emotion on that side, where if you're the conservative, maybe you feel, or someone like me, is that I just want to get to the heart of the problem. I want to hear everybody's voice. I want to be able to listen to that and understand what they're saying and have a conversation. And sometimes I find myself being wrong too, and there's some merit in that. But any time that you see a conversation and you're like, I don't want to hear that thing, that's probably the thing you need to hear, right?
Well, it's so good that we have these alternative outlets like on the Right Side podcast and these other conservative outlets. And I think it's important for people of all stripes to look at both media. Get an idea of what they're saying on the other side. It's these people who just listen to NPR and PBS who have this tunnel vision, and they don't even hear about the other side of the story, other things going on in the world. And speaking of NPR and PBS, the Republican bill just defunded them. And I say right on. I mean, our local congressman, Nick Lalotta, was skittish on it, but he did change his vote and then gave the deciding vote to kill that funding. And here's why I think it's important to kill that funding. Not necessarily because they skewer totally to the left. They're way, way out there on the left. You have a right to say anything you want on the left, but not on my dime. Yeah. Why are we giving money, taxpayer dollars, to any media outlet? There was a time you had 5 channels and you needed PBS. You got 500 channels right now. You don't need to take my taxpayer money to fund PBS and NPR. What do you think?
I think certainly if we're funding anything that is being used for one political campaign or another, which you did see a little bit of that more recently, they started talking about their funding and using it to vote for certain people, which to me is just it's outrageous. But I don't understand. Again, I may take as much money as you want, should all come back to the states, and anything that we're spending our money on that isn't part of what's realistically in the Constitution, I don't really agree with. And certainly I do supporting the arts and things like that. I'm definitely for, if we can't, we should have a good culture. But I don't understand paying for NPR. I mean, this is where we're in a lockstep agreement. To me, there's no reason why, especially something like, you take something like Sesame Street. It's a multi-billion-dollar product. Doesn't need our money. Why are we funding
absolutely.
it?
Spoken like a true libertarian. You mentioned earlier on in the podcast and that's good because we want to get that perspective on this show weekly. So I'm so glad you joined us today, and I do hope you'll come back. But before we wrap up, 2.5 minutes here, tell us about yourself. Your company, you have a foundation as well, which is a marvelous foundation. tell us what that's all
Well,
about.
I guess, for me, I have TechWorks. It was a business I've owned for about almost 25 years now on Long Island. We do IT consulting. I run another group locally called the MacArthur Business Alliance because I really believe that all of our politics are local, and we really need to support local businesses. And it's hyper focused into our area around here because I think that's where the real magic is. These national politics. They seem important sometimes, but they're obviously sometimes, certainly wars and things like that are important. But realistically, what happens day to day right here.
All politics is local, I think Tip O'Neill said, right?
I didn't want to use that. But yeah, for me, so being able to really support our community is very important to me. And I think the third piece of that is obviously, unfortunately, I lost a son to suicide and some mental health challenges, and we started a foundation in his name, and it's just been one of the joys of my life to be able to do that and to be able to support in his name people who are struggling, who have either lost somebody or have kids or teens that are
Where
struggling.
can people find out more about that?
We're at cacgoodgrief.org. My son was Christopher A. Coluccio, so it's cacgoodgrief.org. And
I know living in the community how much hope that foundation is giving to so many people out there. So we thank you.
It's been
great.
amazing. It's been almost 4 years since he passed, and I can tell you, and it makes me chokes up, that we've saved some lives.
Oh,
because
what a
of it.
legacy.
So
What a legacy for
it's
that
a wonderful
young
thing
man.
to be able to do.
God bless you for what you're doing. So please make note of that, folks. It's a wonderful,
And
wonderful.
thank you for letting me talk about it.
Yeah, and you don't have to live here on Long Island to be supportive of it, I'll tell you. And as for me, folks, it's Steve Levy, former county executive, former state assemblyman. Follow my writings on Newsmax.com. I'm a Newsmax insider. You could also see some of my writings in the Washington Examiner, the Washington Times, sometimes in the New York Post. Catch all of my stuff, present, past, and future, on stevelevy.info. And the Center for Cost-Effective Government.org. We're constantly issuing white papers on behalf of the taxpayer. And we had a great time. I'm so glad you joined us today. It goes fast, right?
It's so much fun.
We
I
had
love doing
20 topics. I think we got in about 5, but next week we'll have 20 more. And we do hope you guys will join us again. You've been listening to On the Right Side podcast with Steve Levy, David Zare, and our special guest, Chris Coluccio. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.